Alright, so Scream 4 was actually, I did a review of Scream 4 when it came out. I didn't watch the whole old review, because watching my old videos, it's tough for me. But I did skip to the rating, like some of you do. I'm looking at you. And I was like, T- immediately. Wow, I did not like Scream 4 when it came out, apparently. But YouTube tells me it's been 9 years, so, you know, growth and perspective and things change. And I just think Scream 4 is worth revisiting as I do my Monday Scream days. So, here we go, Scream 4. Screform. I'll never not call it that. Which makes me look forward to Scream 5, because you know they're going to turn the S into a 5, so it's like 5 cream. 5 cream, you scream. We all scream for 5 cream. I want them to title it that just because I want to say that again in a YouTube video. Also, spoiler warning, spoilers for Scream 4. It's less weird giving spoiler warning for a movie that's 10 years old than it is a movie that's 25 years old, but whatever. Alright, so Scream 4 came out in 2011. It promised new decade, new rules. Scream was planned to be a trilogy, and when it was done, but as the horror movie genre changed, Wes Craven saw opportunity there, and he's like, all right, let's, instead of making a movie that copies Scream, let's just make another Scream. So alright, enter Scream 4. Sydney Prescott has written a book. She returns to Woodsboro. Dewey and Gail Weathers, they're married. They've been married for 10 years. I didn't think they'd make it that long, but they did. Then the Ghostface killings start again, and here we go. New Scream movie. With a new cast, a merging of 2 generations and new victims. And really, when I look at Scream 4, I'm tempted to compare it to Scream 3 and see what Scream 4 has over Scream 3, and it really depends on what angle you're coming at Scream 4 from. There are some things Scream 3 does have over Scream 4 right out the gate. Like I said in my Scream 3 review, Scream 3 does have that feeling of finality. You feel like it's the concluding chapter of the trilogy. It feels like it's all wrapped up. It feels like that, you know, it's on a nice, neat little bow. Though, you know, the plot of Scream 3 is a little more out there than the other two. Scream 4 does feel detached. There's a few things making it feel that way. It's naturally going to feel that way because new decade. 10 years later and all. But it does feel like Scream 1, 2, and 3 are all hanging out in a house together because they're that trilogy, and Scream 4 is just kind of hanging out on the porch. But that's not to say Scream 4 doesn't have some solid things going for it. Right out the gate, we're going to talk about Ghostface. Ghostface is back, my friends, and he's back with a vengeance. It is kind of funny when I talk about Ghostface. Like, Ghostface has been 7 people at this point. But when I talk about Ghostface, it's like, oh, Ghostface, the person is back. It's not even the same person. It's that concept that the legend is bigger than the ones that play the character. It's like Batman, Dread Pirate Roberts, and Scream all illustrate that concept best. It's kind of wild for a horror movie to be up there on that kind of pedestal with that concept of characters, but it is for me. So when I say Ghostface is back, I really mean it. Kevin Williamson is the writer of this movie. He wrote Scream 1 and 2, not 3. Also, this isn't coming fresh off of the Columbine shooting, so there wasn't that push to censor Scream 4, whereas there was a push to censor Scream 3. So Ghostface in this movie is Ghostface unhinged, and everything from the phone calls to the kills, I love him. He says some dark shit on the phone in this movie. I mean, top tier Ghostface dick move is when he tells Sydney, if you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother. And he kind of sounds like Beavis from Beavis and Butthead when he does. If you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother. Then he's like, you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't. That's messed up stuff to say. I mean, that's up there. Scream 4, he's like, I'll cut your eyelids open so you don't miss a thing. I'll slice your neck and I won't stop until I hit bone. I'm sure I'm misquoting Ghostface, but intense phone calls in this movie. Also some playful, intense kills, whereas Scream 3 was basically like, all right, a knife and you're dead for the most part. This movie's like, all right, knife. Well, that was kind of boring. Let's throw that person over the roof, have them land on a news van during the police giving their statement to the news. There you go. There's some flair. That one kill where he's on the phone, he's like, I'm in the closet. Hayden Panettiere's like, no, you're not. And he's like, I didn't say I was in your closet. And all they can do is look through the window to next door and watch their friend get slaughtered. That playfulness is dark. The shit he said on the phone was messed up. And that attack is intense. And when Sydney walks up those stairs, man, it looks like the crime scene from Dexter Morgan's Mom. It's like, did Ghostface have a chainsaw? There's blood spatter all over the walls, intestines hanging out. That kill was basically Scream 4 being like, Scream is back, baby. And most importantly, Ghostface returns to take his revenge on doors. So I really love Ghostface in this movie, and I do consider Ghostface and killer reveal 2 different things, but Ghostface on the phone, in the outfit, in the mask, killing people, top tier Ghostface in Scream 4. This movie does have to balance, okay, so it's been 10 years, so we have this new generation and the original older generation. Who do we prioritize? We've seen things do that, and some do it well, like Cobra Kai. You don't have to choose. You can have the older generation and the new generation interweave in one plot that actually is fulfilling. But in a world where this is a slasher film and people have to die, in Scream, you do have to choose. And they erred on the side of caution, and they went with the correct choice in being like, okay, we'll go ahead and prioritize the older generation, and the new generation, they can be there to die. So that's what the new generation's here for. They're here to die. What can I say? But because it's been a decade, and the previous Scream trilogy, that's all wrapped up, the original generation, they don't feel safe. There was one time I was like, oh, I guess Gale Weathers is about to die, and I guess Sydney just died? The movie lets them live, but it also keeps you on your toes, and I appreciate that. That said, yeah, new generation, didn't really care about them. I just saw opportunities for people to die, hopefully creatively. And maybe that's because I'm more attached to the original Scream cast or the 3 surviving members of it, but when I look at Scream 1 and you have Sydney, Randy, Billy, Stu, Tatum, they're all hanging out and they feel like a group of friends. Little did Sydney know 2 of them are dicks. The friends in this movie, this is what I call them. Hayden Panettiere and her meat shields, because that's what her friends are. They're there to die, and she is hands down the most interesting one of the newbies. They played it well with her character, and she played the character well. I feel like most other horror movies in this situation would be like, okay, we need to have the hot chick, then we can have the girl with attitude, then we can have a new horror movie nerd, but we'll have that person be a girl. Scream 4 was like, great, but instead of having 3 separate characters, why don't we crush those 3 concepts into one character, making hands down the most interesting and layered of the new characters. Granted, I mean, she dies, so that's a bummer. I would have liked for her to live, because I wanted her to be in Scream 5 because she was the most interesting one. And the movie does actually fulfill its promise of new decade, new rules. It does give you a glimpse into, okay, this is what horror's like now. This is what it's about now. And in the end, it's a couple of people who want to get famous off of snuff films that they've made. Like, they're recording their killings now. They're making the movie. They're not waiting for Hollywood to do it. And that totally fits and it totally makes sense, and it justifies the movie's existence in that sense. I will say, as much as I love the Ghostface killings in Scream 4, when the killers are unmasked, it kind of loses me. I don't know if it's the fact that I don't buy Emma Roberts as Ghostface. I don't buy Emma Roberts as the killer. The implication is she's the one who fought Gale Weathers, and I feel like Gale Weathers would just kick her fucking ass. Courtney Cox looks like she hits the bow flex. This 75-pound girl's gonna come at her with a knife. Granted, a knife does balance the equation to a point, but I feel like she'll just give her the nightfall in about 2 seconds and that'll be that. It'll be over. But I suppose for what they're going for, it works. Like, I mean, if we're just walking through it as I'm just mentally walking through it right now. When the Ghostface killer or killers take off the mask and like, okay, now the killers are revealed, there's always a feeling that I get, you know? Scream 1 with Stu and Billy, it was more intense for me. The Ghostface thing was the gimmick, but man, when they're unmasked, I feel more uneasy. Most of which is probably because of Matthew Lillard's epic unhinged performance, but still, it's just like, dude, these guys are psychos. Mrs. Loomis didn't freak me out as much as Mickey, but when the Ghostface mask comes off, the same feeling with Mickey. Not as intense as with Stu, but still that feeling of unease is there. Roman, I just felt like he needed a hug. You know, I'm like, oh, your mom, she abandoned you. She totally denied you a life. I'm sorry. He's a sad dude with a sad life, and it's just kind of started the whole thing off. When the Ghostface masks came off in Scream 4, I wasn't scared of these brats. Though I do see that there is a valuable lesson in there about internet and social media clout chasing. It's in line with the plot. Still doesn't change the fact that by the end it was like, okay, so those are the killers, that's fine. I suppose it would have worked better if Sydney's aunt was in the previous Scream movies, and I don't know, I guess she's in Woodsboro. Was she like, oh, my niece is getting stalked? Don't care. Maybe we would have seen this little kid and that was Jill and she would have grown it. Like, you know, like that would have made it work more for me. It just feels like they were like, all right, we need to write in a new family member because we need a new family member because we need a new killer and we need a new motivation. And so it does feel like an afterthought. On a personal note and technical level, I'm not really a fan of how the movie looks. It's like it has that smoothing filter I've seen some 4K movies use to remove some of the film grain. So all their faces look washed out and waxy. Some of the light from the background bleeds over onto people in the foreground. And the light on their faces looks too bright, like everyone has a lamp 2 feet from their face. face. I just prefer the more natural look of the 90s Scream movies. Doesn't change the fact that for an afterthought, for the horror element, I actually dug Scream 4. It's not as tight-knit as Scream 1 and 2. I still feel like it could have ended after Scream 2. But for a new Scream movie that wants to poke at how horror movies had changed in the early 2010s, found footage movies just exploded at that time. So the killer's motivation is to essentially create found footage killings. That works. But what makes the movie for me are the Ghostface phone calls and the Ghostface killings. Ghostface is intense in this movie. Over time, I feel like Scream 4, though it does feel like an afterthought, I think it's a good time. No alcohol required. But most of all, I want to give Scream 4 and all the Scream movies credit for making Sidney Prescott the center for all this time. Most horror movies, I mean, let's face it, we watched Nightmare on Elm Street for Freddy Krueger. A lot of horror movies, the killer becomes the star, and Ghostface is a star in Scream, but it never compromises it all revolving around Sidney Prescott. That's a very rare thing in the horror movie field, and Scream just deserves props for that. All right, so Scream. Always gonna call it that. Have you seen it? Have you watched it? Did you watch it when it came out? Did you rewatch it recently? What do you think about it? Does it get better over time? Has it gotten worse over time? Is it just the same as you've always seen it? Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.